On the 19th of September we finally returned to Monkey Island with the long-awaited entry in the series from Ron Gilbert and Dave Grossman. Of course, being a huge Monkey Island fan, I had to share my thoughts on it. I'll make this review as spoiler free as possible in terms of the main story, but of course there may be small spoilers like the characters and locations and so on, so if you want to go into it completely blind then maybe watch it after you've played it. Thanks to Devolver Digital for sending over a copy of the game for me to review. They also sent Steam codes for the special editions of the first two games, and I'll be giving those away later in the video. The game starts off where Monkey Island 2 left off, but with a twist. I'm deliberately omitting any footage of the prologue because that's a surprise you should experience yourselves. And after that, a reimagining of the original Monkey Island intro. That image, the words, Deep in the Caribbean, and the new version of the theme tune just gave me goosebumps. I'm not exaggerating when I say I sat watching this intro with a huge smile across my face. It was magical, but would the game fill me with that same sense of nostalgia and joy? Only time would tell. At one point early on, Guybrush tells a character that he's dealing with unfinished business from the old days. I love this because that's exactly what the development team are doing, and of course what we're doing as players, which is why they put the dialogue in. I suppose the first thing to address is the art style, a topic of discussion that has plagued online discussions since the game's first trailer. In short, I absolutely love it. When the trailers dropped, I thought it looked good, not amazing, but I did like it. We can't expect every game to have pixel art these days, that's just unreasonable. But once I was playing the game and the graphics were in motion, I realised just how remarkably stunning they are. It looks great and I will sword fight anyone on this. Anyway, more on the art later. Michael Land, Cliff Bajakian and Peter McConnell were back doing the music, a roster that even on paper guarantees success. And the soundtrack is very accomplished. There are modern reimaginings of the classic Monkey Island themes. The main theme, LeChuck's theme, Scum Bar and Melee Village music are all there and are all revamped. They do still feel authentically old and piratey though, if that makes sense. They're not modern in the way that they're techno remixes, they're just new, but they're still the themes we know and love and are still Monkey Island through and through. Sound effects and ambient noise are also superbly executed, and the voice acting is top notch with many actors returning to voice their respective characters. Overall the sound design is absolutely spot on. Shortly after the prologue we're back to Melee Island. The feeling of that first walk down the cliffside path from the lookout to Melee Village was amazing. It's the most Monkey Island experience I've had since the first two games all those years ago. Exciting. Like it or not, the whole game is rich in nostalgia and callbacks. You'll find yourself on Booty, Melee and Monkey Islands. There's insult sword fighting, sort of. Guybrush holds his breath underwater. You sail to Monkey Island. You return to Monkey Island, obviously. And the characters, Carla, Elaine, Wally, the Voodoo Lady, the Scum Bar residents like Cobb and the Chef, Stan, Otis, Herman Toothrot and of course Murray.
Indeed, I am Murray, the all-powerful demonic skull.
There's also loads of self-referential humour, which is nothing new to the series, and even the odd Star Wars reference thrown in for good measure, again a Monkey Island staple. There are some brilliant gags that nod to the old games, but I won't spoil those for you. But despite all the returning characters and locations, newcomers need not fear as it doesn't make the story inaccessible. But in honesty, it does make the game more enjoyable and far funnier if you do get the references. If you're a bit rusty on your Monkey Island trivia, there's even a recap feature on the main menu where you can refresh your memory prior to diving into the game. In addition to this, there are loads of new characters to interact with and plenty of new islands and locations to explore. Early on you're usually limited to one of several single islands, but in the later game it opens up much more. Some of the new islands are perhaps a bit sparse and don't have the same sense of scope or liveliness that islands like Melee or Booty Island had in the previous games, so it would have been nice if some of those were a bit more fleshed out. Take Monkey Island 2 as an example. Travelling between Scab, Booty and Fat Islands, each island had its own unique feel, and the locations on the islands were alive with characters to meet everywhere you went and areas that would only open up after certain puzzles were solved. In return, some of the islands feel like they're bare in terms of actual landmarks and areas, with some having no more use than being tools for a single purpose. Still, the locations are all unique and I didn't dislike any of them in their design. I guess having more locations meant less density and fewer details in each, but would it have been better to have fewer islands with more on them? I don't know. The maps are very well drawn, be it the island maps or the sea maps for navigating between islands. Speaking of navigation, the game is remarkably easy to navigate. The pathing is exceptional. Having played a lot of point and clicks, they can struggle at points with getting the character to exactly where you've clicked. But here I found Guybrush went exactly where I wanted him to every time. Just to be clear, I was playing this on PC with a mouse, as that feels like the way to play Monkey Island to me, so I can't comment on how the Switch version controls. They've also made the locations a bit more accessible. For example, the Melee Island map now allows you to access the different parts of the Melee village directly from the map, rather than having to walk all the way through each time. There's also an access point added behind the Governor's Mansion which gets you back to the main map. The interface itself is very simple and easy to grasp. Hovering over an object or character with the cursor highlights some actions that can be performed by clicking either the left or right mouse button. Actions like pick up or look at don't have to be selected, they will just appear as options, and the available actions, or verbs if you will be relevant to the object or person in question. Your inventory is displayed in the bottom left corner, this little Matilda icon. Click it once to open it and you'll see all your gathered items. Using or examining these works in the same way, you just hover the cursor over them to see the available actions, and to use them you just click to select and then click on a different object or character to use that item with them. Return to Monkey Island uses the Dinky game engine created by Ron Gilbert and is a tweaked version of the engine created for Thimbleweed Park. The interface might not please point and click purists, and I do love the old SCUM interface for adventure games, but this works well and is very accessible to everyone. The puzzles in Return to Monkey Island are very true to the spirit of the originals. Don't worry, there's nothing as obscure as the infamous Monkey Wrench puzzle for Monkey Island 2, but some of them are quite taxing. Most are just logical, so if you pop your thinking cap on, you'll get there eventually, combined with some good old trial and error. I suppose that the game is much easier if you've played point and click adventure games before, as the type of logic you use to solve puzzles is easier to get your head around than if you're a newcomer. It's like a cryptic crossword, your 10th is far simpler to complete than your first. There are two ways to play the game, an easy and hard mode, just like Monkey Island 2, the easy mode being a cut down simpler version of the game with some simplified puzzles. If you want the full monkey, go for hard mode. There's also a hint book in-game which you can consult if you get stuck. It's quite cleverly implemented actually, in that the hints start off very subtle, just nudging you in the right direction. Then they get progressively less cryptic until the hint outright tells you exactly what to do. I think this is a great addition to the game. It's not taking anything away because people in this day and age can just Google any answers they want to, and the way the clues gradually escalate in clarity is ideal. As well as the hint book, your inventory also has a to-do list. I found this to be the most welcome addition to the game because I often forget what I'm doing in point and clicks, especially if I've been away from the game for a few days. It doesn't spoil anything, it just reminds you of your main objectives at the time. And then there's the trivia book. This is a book where you can store the trivia cards you'll find throughout the game. Once you collect one, you can answer the multiple choice trivia question on it. If you get it right, it's added to the collection. There seems to be 100 of these, but I don't think I found anywhere near half of that in my first playthrough. Thankfully, the collection spans multiple playthroughs, so you don't have to start again the next time you play it. Also, this gives you another crack at any you got wrong the first time. The questions are on all things Monkey Island, so could be from any of the previous games as well as Return. I nailed the questions from the first two games, but I'm not as au fait with the more recent entries in the series. Back to the art, as I said, love the art style now I've played it. It has the old LeChuck cutscenes throughout, triggered by you reaching a certain point in the story. These are just like those in Monkey Island 2 and sometimes even take place in the same locations. The menus are even nice to look at. Perhaps one of my favourite bits of the art design is the close-ups, which are reminiscent of the hand-painted close-ups or gross-ups in Ren and Stimpy. These are frequent in Return to Monkey Island, and I thought they were such a nice touch and one of the more visually pleasing aspects of the game. The pacing is very well executed and it's quite meaty. My first playthrough took me around 10 hours in all, so that's a decent amount of game for the genre. Later in the game you feel like you're approaching the end and that it will wrap up soon, but then a whole load of story and objectives open up. The ending is, as expected, very Ron Gilbert in tone, and that's all I'll say about that. If I had a criticism, it would be that I would have liked some more direct interaction with LeChuck, but don't worry, there's plenty of him in the story. For anyone watching that's skeptical of playing Return due to the art style, it's really not an issue. Even if you don't love it like I do, you don't really focus on the art style during the game, you just feel like you're playing Monkey Island. It's just so much like the first two games in spirit. The humour, the puzzles and the whole feel of the game just feels true to the originals. You can really tell this was made by Ron and Dave. And really, that sentiment sums up what I'd like you to take away from this video, if nothing else, that this game feels like Monkey Island through and through. Is it perfect? No, it isn't, but it's better than I had hoped it would be. It was a joy to play and experience, and nothing has felt so in keeping with the original vibe of the series for me in a long time. It's a long awaited return to glory for the series. Speaking of the originals, if you want to be in with a chance to win the Steam codes for the special editions, make sure you work the name of a fruit into your comment below. Congratulations to the team that worked on it, and thank you. Now all we need is a nice big box release that can sit alongside my Lucasfilm games, please. I've never been one to put any stock into what other people think, but if you trust my opinion, know that I think that Return to Monkey Island is an absolute triumph. Thanks for watching.